Hey, what's up everybody? Mark Price here at devslopes.com, and today we are going to talk about classes and object-oriented programming. And you may have heard these phrases before, and now let's see how they actually work in real life. So we're going to create a new playground, my playground. We're going to call this one Objects and Classes. Let's put this over here in our iOS 10 course in the Swift section and create. Okay. Just make this a little larger for you here. So, what is a class? Okay, so we've been working with classes and object-oriented programming, I think sometime since the 70s, and before that it was functional programming. Functional programming still exists today, but object-oriented programming is probably the most popular form of programming currently. And there's some new paradigms coming out that are trying to move away from it slightly, like protocol-oriented programming, which you'll also learn a little bit about of later on. But object-oriented programming is the idea where you can create like a blueprint for something and create multiple copies of it. Perfect example is, let's say, a car in a car factory, right? You can create a blueprint for a car, and then you can create multiple copies of that car. And so let's go ahead and use that example right here. We want to create a car. So you create a class, okay, by defining the keyword class, and then the name of the class. So we're going to say car, or better yet, vehicle. Okay, and a vehicle has multiple properties and functions, such as, if we say var, a vehicle has a certain amount of tires. Okay, we can say equals 0 or 4 to if it's a vehicle with 4 tires. That could be a default value, for instance. A vehicle can have lights, like headlights, right? So how many headlights does a car have? You know, what is the horsepower of a car? You know, or a vehicle, 468 horsepower. So we got horsepower on a vehicle. And a car can do things, right? A vehicle can do things such as drive. So we can create a function called drive. And it will, you know, there's some type of algorithm that will accelerate the vehicle. You know, so a vehicle can drive. A vehicle can brake. Okay? So a class has properties such as tires, headlights, and horsepower, and also can have functions such as drive and brake. And so what you want to do to understand object-oriented programming is really visualize the world around you. Some people are really good at this. Like if you're an artist or you come from the design background, object-oriented programming tends to just cling to you because you can view things like objects, like people. Sometimes if you're more on the other side of the brain, it's harder to visualize. Maybe you're thinking numbers and things like that. Whereas this is very much a visual type of way of laying out your code. So when we're coding, for instance, let's say we're making an app like Instagram. Instagram has users who can like other photos. So you might have a user object where it has a user ID, an account, username, and password as properties. And it maybe has, this user has functions such as, you know, reset password or delete account, things like that. And then even the pictures could be an object. A photo is an object, so class photo, and it has the selected filter. It has how many likes it has, how many comments it has, and those could be properties of it. You know, a photo, you can add a function of a photo such as add like, okay, or remove like, action items on it. So you can start looking at objects in everything that's around you from the real world, like, oh, there's a vehicle outside, what does it have? Or there's a house, it has a door, it has windows, those are the properties. What can a house do? Well, a house can cool down from the AC unit, so we can call cool down house function, or we can call heat up house function. Everything around you, if you put it into some type of object, can do something, and it also has properties of some kind or things that describe it. And so you're going to see a lot of objects in programming, or a lot of classes, and this is exactly how it works, using the class keyword and then giving it some type of name, giving it properties, and then functionality of some kind. Some of the classes that you'll see as you move along in programming, and some that you've already worked with, are, things like this, like view controller. So I could say class, new VC for view controller, and it has inherited from UI view controller. Okay, you've seen things like that, and then you've seen the view did load. You've seen those functions there like that. We've just created a class and we've inherited from another class. Okay, really cool stuff. And so to create an instance of your class, so what we've done here is we've defined our class, but if we want to create an instance of it, okay, and let's give this vehicle a model. Okay, so var model. Okay, it'll just be a no model to begin with. So what I can do is I can say let's call this BMW equals, and then we'll create a new vehicle like so, and then we can say BMW dot model equals let's say 328i. Okay, and so you can set the properties of this class like so. But what's really cool is we can create as many as we want. So I can say let, and let's call this a Ford equals vehicle, and we're going to say Ford.model equals F-150. You see what's happening here? We created code one time, but we can start creating multiple instances of that code and then setting the properties of it, as well as calling the functions, such as I can say Ford.break, and I've now called the function of this class. I've told it to do something. And so properties, functions on a class. Think of it like a blueprint. When you're designing your apps, when you're designing anything, think in your mind, can I give this properties or attributes that describe it? And then think in your mind, can it do anything? In most cases, it's going to be yes. Okay? Like if you had a bank account balance, it's going to have your balance. It's going to have your first name, your last name, or your bank account. And then it's going to have a function that says withdraw funds or add funds. There's going to be different things that can happen to, or that it can do in your class or in a bank account class, for instance. So classes, they have properties, they have functions, things that can do stuff, and then they have the ability to be instantiated. Okay, at this point in time, I am instantiating, that's a keyword, instantiating an instance of the vehicle class. I am instantiating another instance of the vehicle class. These are also called objects. Once you've instantiated them, they're called an object. So you would say, I have a Ford object, or a BMW object, or I'm creating an object, or using an object. Okay? At this point in time, it's not an object. It's just a class or a blueprint. But once it comes out of the factory, okay, when you instantiate it, it becomes an object. Okay? Another thing to know is that objects are passed by reference, not by value. Okay? So let me show you here. If I create a function, and some function, doesn't need to have a cool name, and let's say we want to pass a vehicle in here, like so, of type vehicle. Okay, if I say vehicle.model, no, it's not what I told you to do. I said lowercase. I did not type in uppercase. It is really getting me here. Okay, vehicle.model equals cheese. Okay, something strange, right? Get this. So let's say we have the Ford model here, right? And then I call some function, and we know it says Ford F-150 because I put that in the model. So let's print the Ford dot model. So we're going to print it right here. I'll put it on the right hand side. That currently says F-150, but get this. Then I'm going to call some function and pass in Ford. And then I'm going to print Ford.model. And look what happens. It's now cheese. And maybe you're thinking to yourself, wait, what just happened? How is this being modified? This is supposed to be a constant. You're not supposed to be able to modify this. What's going on? Well, they're passed by reference, okay? An object has a reference in memory. You can't copy an object. You cannot copy an object, okay? You can copy values like integers and doubles, but you cannot copy an object. So these are passed by reference. A very important distinction. This gets a lot of bugs in new developers' apps. Passed by reference. Let me write this down right here. Passed by reference, okay? Or they're reference objects. And if you're still confused, let's do the same example again. Let's say some function, or actually let's just call this first one we're passing in an object by reference. So that's the name of this function now. Okay? let's create a new function here called pass by value. All right, and this takes a double, or let's say an integer. Yeah, this takes an integer. Let's say age, okay? Type int. And let's say we say age equals 10. All right, and I forgot the func keyword. Okay, so here we've modified our value, okay? Nothing was copied over. So what we're gonna do now, well, first off, look at this. You can't even change the value because it's a constant. All right, so that's already, we can't do anything with that. So if I was to say var someone's age equals 20, and then down here I was to call pass by value, and I pass in someone's age, it won't even work because these are constants. So my point is, when I pass this in here like this, okay, it's being copied in here like so, and then I can use the value here. So I could say, you know, let new age equals age, and this one will never be modified. Okay, never ever ever be modified. So important distinction: pass by reference, you can modify the object. It points to a specific spot in memory. Value types like the string or the double or the integer or the float or CG float, things like that, are all passed by value, or rather they're copied over. Okay, one is copied, one is not. Very important. So this is the basics of classes and object-oriented programming. You can create a class, it has properties that describe it, and then it has actions that it can take or things that can act upon that object. Okay, it's going to take you a while to learn, but as you're doing this course and doing other things with programming, it'll all come together over time. But that's it for now. Mark Price at devslopes.com. See you soon.